Good evening, traveler of the twilight, if you're here. Perhaps the day was just too long, or maybe the silence of the night whispered your name more gently than the world outside ever could. This is a space for rest, to loosen the knots of the mind and let the body sink, slowly, like a leaf dancing over a still lake. If you'd like, take this moment to make everything around you a little more serene. Turn off the lights, or leave just one, very dim, maybe a candle, or the steady hum of a fan. Get comfortable wherever you are. This is your temple of sleep, and tonight we're going to visit a place that was once nearly a god, and today is only a memory. Have you ever wondered where time goes to sleep when no one remembers it anymore? There are places where the seasons tangle into each other, forgetting their order, as if spring were dozing off in autumn's lap, and in that in-between, something begins to bloom. I sit here on the edge of a field that was once a garden. What do I do here? I listen. It's the only craft that never abandoned me. The stones still speak, if you have the right kind of silence to hear them. Tonight, I want you to come with me. Don't be afraid of the twisted iron gates. They seem abandoned, but the rust remembers who passes. The forgotten garden of Persephone only opens for those who aren't searching. And you, right now, are not looking for anything, only rest. The garden has no owner, and yet it belongs to a queen. Persephone, daughter of Demeter, the one who blooms with the wheat and descends with the silence. They say she splits the year between two worlds, half beneath the earth, in the realm of shadows, and half above it, among the flowers. But that's just what men said. You discover, upon entering, that there's a third place, a garden she created on her own, a space between worlds, where she's not a daughter, not a wife, not a goddess, just someone trying to remember who she was before everything. Vines are tangled around broken columns. Wild roses, long forgotten, they should have wilted, still perfume the air with a pale sweetness, as if sleeping with their eyes open. And the cypresses, the cypresses, they whisper her name, not like a prayer, but like a sigh. Persephone, Persephone, you walk slowly. Your feet touch the soft earth, as if it were breathing beneath your soles. You feel a slight shiver, but it isn't fear. It's memory, as if you've been here before, and maybe you have. You know, in ancient times, gardens were more than just places of beauty. They were soul maps, places where gods and humans met without needing to say a word. The forgotten garden of Persephone was like that, a mirror where she could see herself, without the crown, without Hades' watchful eyes, without Demeter's silent screams. She planted absences, harvested silences. The flowers had no names. They didn't need them. Each one was a thought she couldn't share with anyone. Each dried branch, a buried desire. You touch a twisted trunk. It trembles, as if it recognizes your touch. Maybe it misses someone too, or maybe it's just a trunk. In this garden, it's hard to tell, but there is something you feel clearly now. Slowness. Time doesn't move here. It stretches. It drags itself, like a warm cat in the sun, and that slowness begins to take over you. Your shoulders relax. Your breath deepens. The garden begins to hold you, and you begin to hold something too, an ancient tiredness that doesn't belong only to you. It's as if Persephone, in her absence, had left a sleeping melancholy in the air, waiting for someone to feel it for her. You look up. The sky here has the color of a memory, and that's how it begins. You are no longer in your room, no longer in your day. You are in the forgotten garden of Persephone, and it's beginning to dream of you too. The flowers here, they don't turn toward the sun. They don't beg for light, don't show off. They simply exist. They live off an older light, a light that doesn't come from above, but from within the earth, like a secret kept in silence for ages. You walk slowly, like someone who doesn't want to wake the ground. Each step is a descent, not downward, but inward. In this garden, there are no paths, only intentions. Nature grew as it pleased, without maps, without plans, and even so, everything seems in its place, as if chaos, here, were a kind of peace. You feel a presence. It's not a figure, it's a state, as if the garden were looking back at you, welcoming your insomnia with tenderness, without questions. Persephone is not here, and yet she is, like the scent of rain on dry earth, like the memory of a dream you're not sure you had. Perhaps, if you listen closely, you might hear her footsteps. Not now, not out loud, but somewhere between one petal and another. She came here when she needed to remember who she was before being chosen, before being taken, before being worshipped, because being a goddess sometimes is just another kind of prison. An altar is a cell when you've lost the will to climb it, and in this garden, she was just herself, a young woman picking flowers, not knowing each one she touched was an omen. You approach a clearing. At the center, shallow lake. The water is so still, it looks like glass. You kneel down, look at your reflection. But for a moment, you don't see your face. You see hers. Not the golden face of the queen of the underworld, not the dramatic pallor of the lost daughter, but a human face, curious, frightened, free. And you understand, this garden is where she kept what she could no longer carry, the doubts, the fears, the what-ifs. You feel the breeze pass by like an ancient whisper. It seems to say, you can leave something here too. And maybe you do. A thought, a pain, a memory, too heavy to fall asleep with. You touch the surface of the lake. Soft ripples form and break your reflection. And for an instant, everything feels light. This is not a garden to be looked at. It's a garden to be felt, to forget time, or maybe to remember it in a new way. The distant sound of rustling leaves, a scent of jasmine that shouldn't be blooming this season. Everything here defies logic, and because of that, it's peaceful. You sit at the lake's edge. You don't need to do anything. The garden is already doing everything for you. And as the night moves on, you notice that you're no longer hearing your thoughts so clearly. They've softened, become whispers, as if sleep itself had found you and sat beside you in silence. The lake is behind you now, but something from it still pulses within you, as if a part of your soul had dissolved in that still water, light, silent, finally quiet. You walk down a corridor of twisted trees. They lean gently toward one another, as if exchanging secrets, or perhaps whispering about you, but without judgment, only curiosity. Each step feels like walking on living memory. The soil beneath your feet smells of old leaves and dreaming roots. You feel the ground beneath your toes, like the back of a sleeping animal. The garden breathes, and when it breathes, you breathe better too. Slower, deeper, as if something inside you had understood that there's no need to rush anymore. You find a stone bench covered in moss. Someone once must have sat there many times. Maybe Persephone, maybe no one. But there's a mark, a soft curve in the moss that suggests presence or a lingering absence. You sit and let your body rest. The sky above still has the color of a dream, but stars are beginning to appear, shyly, between the intertwined branches, like the eyes of small gods, who only show themselves when no one's looking. You wonder what it's like to live between worlds, to have to leave, even when every part of you wants to stay, to carry the duality of light and darkness in your own chest. Persephone knew that burden. But she also knew a rare kind of freedom, the freedom of not fully belonging anywhere, not to the fields, not to the underworld, not to her mother, not to her husband, not to the flower, not to the shadow. She was the in-between, the parenthesis between bloom and wilt, the silence between two seasons. You close your eyes for a moment, and the wind passing through the trees has the sound of ancient music, not melody, but cadence, rhythm, as if each leaf knew the exact moment to fall, as if each branch knew how much it could bear before bending. You think about your own life, the roles you wear every day, the versions of yourself you scatter across the world, and maybe, like Persephone, you miss a space where you don't have to be anything but you. No name, no function, no demand, just pure existence. You realize this garden is one of those rare places where being does not depend on doing. You open your eyes, and right ahead, you see a fig tree, old, crooked, grand. It looks like it was born before language itself. Its thick branches stretch out like arms with no urgency left in them. You step closer and breathe in the sweet scent of ripe figs fallen around the trunk. Insects buzz gently, fulfilling nature's cycle. Nothing is wasted here. Not the fruit, not the memory. You extend your hand, touch the wrinkled bark, and for a second, you swear you feel a pulse. Slow, deep, as if time itself had a heart. You rest your forehead on the trunk. The wood is warm, and the world seems to stop, or maybe just slow down, until you and it breathe in the same rhythm. You're not in a hurry, and you don't need to be. In this place, rushing would be a kind of disrespect. You simply are, in the forgotten garden of Persephone, where everything that doesn't fit in the real world fits here. And maybe this is the first time in a very long time that you feel truly at home. Sometimes the night breathes so slowly, it feels like it's dozing off too. And in this moment, you start to notice you're no longer walking. You're being carried, not by your feet, but by silence. The garden seems to have a will of its own. It doesn't impose, doesn't demand, but gently, it guides. Like a distracted mother leading a child by the hand, unaware she's guiding them, somewhere even she's never been. You walk into a new section. Here the vegetation changes. The flowers are small, discreet, blooming straight out of the stones. Resilient flowers. They weren't born to decorate, but to endure. Persephone used to come through here when she wanted to remember what she had lost, but also what she had gained, because as much as mythology speaks of abduction and sorrow, there's a part of the story no one dares to tell, the part where she chooses to stay, or at least, not to flee. She didn't return whole, and perhaps she never wished to return entirely. There is something beneath the earth that answers to a hidden part of the soul, a calling the gods disguise as punishment, but which, in truth, is recognition. You touch a stone covered in lichen. It's cold, but beneath the surface, there is warmth, and then you hear something. Not a sound, almost a thought that isn't yours. A fragment, perhaps, of something Persephone used to whisper here. Not everything that blooms wants to be picked. That phrase echoes inside you like a forgotten reminder. You keep walking. A corridor of willows opens before you. The branches fall like curtains of mourning. But as you pass through them, you realize there is no sadness here, only stillness. This garden doesn't reveal itself all at once. You must earn it. With each layer, it unveils more, but only to those who know how to look gently, without haste, without demand. And then you see her, not Persephone, but a trace, a white tunic, folded over a stone, immaculate, dry, as if it had been left there just yesterday. You approach with reverence. There's something intimate in the gesture, like stepping into someone's room in silence, knowing that everything inside carries meaning. Beside the tunic, a small wooden box, locked but cracked at the edges. Inside, seeds, many of them, of different colors and sizes, none labeled, because here, naming would only limit them. These seeds, you sense, weren't meant to sprout in just any soil. They are thoughts, memories, fears, desires. Persephone planted them here when she wanted to forget, or when she wished something would remain. You take one into your hand. It's light, but dense with meaning, and when you touch it, an image forms in your mind, a field of sunflowers, on a hill that doesn't exist in this garden, maybe in the other world, maybe inside you. You place the seed in your pocket, or in your heart, it doesn't matter where. What matters is that it's part of you now. You rise. The wind changes direction, soft, like the touch of someone passing behind you, who doesn't want to be seen, but wants to be felt. You don't ask anything. You don't need to. In the forgotten garden of Persephone, answers don't come in words. They bloom in silence, like the seeds she kept for the days she needed to remember she could still create. And you continue, lighter, more whole, closer. There is a kind of stillness that isn't the absence of sound, but the abundance of listening. And in this moment, as you walk the living trails of the garden, you realize you are wrapped in exactly that, silence full of unspoken meaning. The air has changed, not in temperature, but in texture, thicker, almost liquid, as if time were being filtered through the leaves before reaching you. You pass through an arch of intertwined ivy. It doesn't lead to a new place, it leads to a new state. And on the other side, everything feels even older, as if each stone had been here since before Persephone's first memory. Here, the trees are in no rush. They bend over themselves, forming spirals of shadow, and the ground, covered in dry leaves that do not rot. But wait, there are voices in this place, not in the air, but in the soil, beneath the earth. And if you stop, place your palm upon the ground, you will feel them. Not screams, not wails, but fragments of stories, shards of identity that didn't fit on Olympus. Persephone gathered those voices, not as offerings, but as mirrors. She knew that every lost soul is, in truth, a version of herself that the world didn't accept. You keep walking, and then something shifts. A scent in the air, thick, sweet, almost intoxicating. Narcissus flowers. The flower she was holding when the ground first opened, when the world decided her fate for her, when she was still just a girl. You come across a flower bed full of them, none planted in order, all growing as they wished, and that makes them more beautiful. You draw near, kneel, and for a moment, close your eyes. The scent sinks deep, as if cleaning something forgotten within you, as if saying, it's okay, you too may have been pulled away from yourself, and still you can bloom. You feel a twinge in your chest, not pain, but recognition. What is most powerful in Persephone may not be her ability to reign, but to survive uprooting, and still germinate in silence. You lie down right there, among the flowers, the cold ground beneath your back, the sky veiled by the leaves, and for a moment, everything disappears. No story, no garden, no you, only the sound of your own breathing, which now, finally, slows down, and then a soft sound arises, a nearly musical touch. It's the wind passing through hollow bamboo tubes, hidden among the trees. They produce spaced notes, as if the garden were composing a melody just for those who lie among the narcissus. You listen, and let the music in, without understanding, without rationalizing, just feeling. Persephone, perhaps, did this many times, lying among the flowers that announced her loss, and turning them into shelter. You open your eyes, and between two trees, you see something gleaming. It's not gold, not stone. It's a small statue, made of raw clay, faceless, but with arms extended, as if offering something, or awaiting an embrace that never came. You approach, and without knowing why, you bow before it, not as worship, but as mutual recognition. Something inside you understands. Persephone didn't create a garden to forget. She created it to remember, gently, to turn trauma into fertile soil, and now, you are part of it. There's a part of the garden where sunlight never reaches, not out of cruelty, but out of respect. Some secrets only bloom in shadow, and some hearts only reveal themselves when no light is judging their shape. You slowly cross the border where green yields to dark, but this darkness isn't frightening. It's welcoming, like the inside of a shell, like the depth of a vegetal womb. The plants here have thick leaves, coated in a dewy glow. Thick moss covers the stones, like old blankets, and the air smells of roots. This is where Persephone came, when she didn't want to be seen, not even by her own thoughts, when she needed to feel the weight of the earth and remember that, even beneath it, something can grow. You wonder what blooms in the dark, and the answer comes, without words, that which could not bear the weight of light, fears, desires, truths, not meant to be spoken, but to be felt. You feel something in the air, a density, as if time here walked barefoot. And then, you see, not something defined, but a shape, a dark silhouette against a darker night. She is still, facing away, her long hair falling like a curtain of shadow. You don't need to see her face to know who it is. The garden is too quiet, almost in reverence. Persephone is there, not as a goddess, not as a queen, but as a fragment of herself. You don't come closer, not out of fear, but out of respect for the space she built for herself. Some places are so intimate, just being near is enough to touch them. She extends a hand and touches a plant with black leaves and violet edges. You've never seen this species before. Maybe it doesn't exist outside this place. And in that touch, there is something ritualistic, like someone slowly awakening the part of themselves the world refused to see. She kneels, plucks a small flower, and holds it against her chest, as if it were a key or a wound. You feel at that moment a gentle weight in your own chest, as if you were connected to her, as if what she holds in silence echoed inside you. You close your eyes and feel everything that was never said, the forced choices, the silenced desires, the rejected versions. But you also feel something else, strength, the steadiness of someone who learned to live between two worlds and to turn pain into root. When you open your eyes, she is no longer there, but the space feels even denser, as if she had left something behind, not an object, but a presence. You walk to where she stood. The plant still glows faintly where she touched it, and on the ground, a stone with worn-out inscriptions. You kneel, run your hand over them, and realize you can't read them. But you don't need to. You understand what they say without reading. Not everything needs light to bloom. You sit down, lean against the trunk of a silent tree, and let the darkness embrace you. And in that darkness, you realize you are not alone. You never were, because even in absence, there is presence. Even in darkness, there is growth. Even in silence, there is meaning. And the garden whispers, rest. There is still time. There are still paths. There are still parts of you waiting to bloom. When you wake, if you ever truly slept, the darkness of the garden doesn't frighten you. In fact, it welcomes you like a warm blanket over a tired body. But something has changed, not around you. Inside, there's a new space within you, as if something had rearranged, not dramatically, just gently shifted into its rightful place. You rise slowly. The body feels heavier, but in a good way. The weight of no longer holding what didn't need to be held. You walk on and notice a subtle dawn between the leaves, not a sunrise of clear skies, but a shy glow like a memory of light. You reach a clearing where a circle of stones stands, arranged with strange precision. Not perfect, but harmonious. There, time seems to move in circles, not in lines, as if each stone represented a season, not of the year, but of the soul. You touch the first one. It's cold, covered in lichen. You feel something like ancient fatigue. It is the inner winter, the season where everything feels still, where thoughts retreat, and the heart grows dull, but also where the soil prepares, in secret, to be reborn. The second stone is warm, slightly damp. It is the spring of being, full of dreams that have no shape yet, fragile hopes, but persistent, like the first leaves daring to sprout on the edge of fear. The third stone pulses with gentle warmth. It is the summer of identity, when you recognize yourself clearly, even if only briefly. It's where courage blooms. To be whole, even knowing the world may try to trim you down. The last stone is covered in dry leaves, but there's beauty in that. It is the autumn of farewell, when you learn to let go, to release, not from weakness, but from maturity. You sit in the center of the circle, the stones around you, silent, and you understand. Persephone lives all of these seasons at once. The myth split her between two worlds, but she multiplied into 4 times. And maybe, so do we. Maybe you're in one of those moments, or between two, or all of them. At the same time, you run your hand along the ground, feel the fine grains of sand mixed with brittle twigs, the texture of the cycle, of what was, of what is, of what is yet to be. The garden doesn't tell you who you are. It gives the question back to you, gently, like someone offering a seed, not an answer. And as you rest there, among the stones that remember time, something within you yields. There's no rush to define yourself, no rush to bloom, no rush to leave. Nature feels no urgency. Why should you? Maybe that's the gift of Persephone's forgotten garden. It frees you from the obligation to be constant, to be predictable, to always be ready. Here, even the seasons allow themselves to change, and you can too. The stones are left behind, and with them, the feeling that time needs to be measured. Here, in the forgotten garden of Persephone, time simply is, without urgency, without clock, without waiting. You pass through a grove of trees, growing so close together that their canopies form a living ceiling. The light that filters through the branches seems to filter your thoughts, too, as if only what's necessary is allowed in. The ground is now covered in moss, so thick your steps sink gently, like into a vegetal mattress. And each step is an invitation to go deeper, not into space, but into yourself. Farther ahead, you see a stone structure, partly covered in vegetation. It's not a temple, not a ruin, something between the two, as if it were built for a purpose no one remembers. As you approach, you see there are no doors, no roof, only circular columns marking the perimeter of an empty space. You step inside, and immediately you feel something different in the air, quieter than the rest of the garden, as if silence itself had knelt here. In the center, small platform covered in leaves. You approach. There is no statue, no altar, no symbol, and that says more than any icon could. This is a place for what has no name. Persephone came here when she wanted to forget she was a goddess, when the weight of imposed narratives became too much, when she needed to sit alone and be simply someone. You sit too. There are no instructions, no rituals, just the space and what it awakens. Maybe you think of all the things you've tried to name in life, sorrows, joys, phases, fears. But here, None of those words matter, because sometimes naming is limiting, and the sacred is what escapes the dictionary. You close your eyes, and for a few minutes, or maybe hours, you are no one. No story, no past, no role. You just breathe and feel and exist. And in that existence, there is a strange peace. Not euphoric, not vibrant, just a stillness that slowly dissolves everything that had been tight in your chest. When you open your eyes, a black butterfly rests on your knee. It doesn't move. It just rests, as if it recognized in you the same kind of gentle shadow. You don't touch it. It leaves on its own, without sound, like a thought that arrives, fulfills its purpose, and goes. You rise, and as you leave the circle of columns, you look back, not to say goodbye, but to keep this space in your memory, not as a place, but as a state. The nameless sanctuary is not made of stone. It is made of absence, of the absence of noise, of demand, of expectation, and maybe now it exists within you too. The path beyond the sanctuary is narrow, as if it had been walked only once, and then forgotten. But the garden, with its vegetal kindness, does not completely erase what it wishes to remember. You walk through low bushes, full of slender leaves that brush gently against your ankles. It's a subtle touch, almost a caress. The sky between the branches now takes on shades of deep blue, though not fully night, as if twilight had decided to rest a bit before continuing its journey. Farther ahead, you don't see yet, only hear, a muffled sound, like distant voices conversing behind a wall, words without shape, sounds that refuse to be understood. You're not afraid, because that sound, you recognize, it's the echo of things that got stuck in your throat, the words you never said, the silences that screamed inside you when no one was listening. Persephone had her silences too. Some screamed within her so loudly, even Hades couldn't ignore them. Others, she turned into flower beds. You reach a clearing where small stones form spirals on the ground. There are no flowers here, no shadows, only these spirals, carefully traced into the earth. You approach the largest one, and without thinking, begin to walk its path from the outside in. One slow step at a time, the sound of the distant voices grows stronger as you near the center, but it doesn't disturb. It doesn't hurt. In fact, it feels like each step translates a sentence, each curve, an unspoken feeling. And then, in the center, you stop and you understand. These voices are yours. They are the versions of yourself that were silenced, the desires never lived, the dreams abandoned out of fear or care for others. But here, in the spiral's heart, they do not ask for justice, nor vengeance. They only want to be remembered, with tenderness. You close your eyes, and silently, you give thanks for everything that could not be, but tried to be. When you open your eyes, the sound has gone quiet, not because it was shut down, but because it was received. You leave the spiral with soft steps, like someone stepping away from an ancient riddle now solved, and you feel something inside has been released. Light, not forgotten, but finally at peace. The garden continues, and so do you. More whole, more serene, more true. Perhaps Persephone didn't build this place to heal, but without meaning to, she did exactly that. And now, that echo no longer hurts. It simply rests. You now walk through a part of the garden that feels more open. The sky is visible, and the light, though faint, reveals a flatter terrain, scattered with short-lived flowers. Poppies, dandelions, small sprouts that live only a day. And don't mind, there is something freeing about that. Beauty that doesn't demand permanence, existence that doesn't need to prove anything. Persephone used to sit here, according to the whispers of the earth. Maybe because this corner of the garden reminded her that not everything must last to be meaningful, and that some beauty can only exist if it is fleeting. You sit among the flowers, careful not to crush them, but in doing so, you notice a few inevitably give way under your weight, and there is no guilt. Nature doesn't mourn every fallen flower. It understands the cycle. You breathe in deeply. The air here smells like freshly cut grass. Even if no one's been cutting, it smells like change, of constant transformation. A soft breeze passes. It carries with it tiny winged seeds, like wishes tossed into the wind, with no clear destination. You remember something you once wished for, a long time ago, something that once felt vital, and now, from a distance, no longer weighs on you. Sometimes, what seemed essential was only the echo of absence. And that's okay. Persephone knew that. That's why she cultivated here what was brief, what couldn't be stored, what couldn't be tamed, because she, too, was that, free in her transience. You touch one of the flowers. It crumbles at your touch. But instead of sadness, you feel relief, as if the garden were saying, not everything that ends has failed. You look toward the horizon, nothing grand, just a field slowly fading into soft hills. But there's something hypnotic about it. Maybe it's the movement of the seeds in the air, or the way silence settles into small things. You lie on your back, look up at the sky. The clouds drift slowly, like thoughts in no hurry to reach anywhere. And in that moment, you feel that you can let go. Not everything, not now, but something. An expectation, a demand, an idealized image of yourself. Like a flower that wilts in peace, because it has already fulfilled its beauty. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you no longer want to understand, or control, or predict, just exist. In that exact moment, between a flower blooming and dissolving into the wind, you return to the path with the ease of someone who no longer needs to prove anything to anyone, not even to themselves. Each step now is lighter, as if the very ground is helping you move without effort, with no defined direction. Because in this garden, destination is always secondary. Farther ahead, a small rise of earth appears before you. At the top, something catches your attention. A formation of stones arranged in line, as if someone were trying to write without ink, writing with the world itself. You climb slowly. The air is still, as if waiting for something. There's no wind, no sound, only an expectant quiet. As you reach the top, you understand. The stones aren't scattered. They form lines, phrases, chapters, like a notebook, made of silence and mineral. You kneel, touch one of them, cold, but not indifferent. There's a kind of memory in its texture, as if it had absorbed thoughts or longings. This is Persephone's notebook, not written to be read, but to be felt. Each stone holds a confession, a choice, an omission. She came here, alone, and placed one stone at a time, not to build, but to release. You walk between the rows. You don't try to decipher anything. The wisdom lies precisely in not understanding everything. And then, something surprises you. A newer stone, with moss still fresh, as if it had just recently been placed. You touch it, and a memory lights up, but it's not yours, it's hers. A feeling so intimate, you nearly pull away, but the garden keeps you there. Held, the stone holds the image of a decision to stay. Even when freedom seemed like a temptation, even when the underworld felt suffocating, Persephone chose to stay. Not out of submission, but because she recognized something of herself in that place. And because she had learned that not every home is born from light. You sit, close your eyes, and imagine the sound of the stones being placed one by one, like soft heartbeats, building something slowly. Without demand, you realize you carry your own stones too. some old, some recent, and maybe it's time to place one here as well. You find it near your feet, small, pale, light. You don't carry it with you. You place it on the ground, with intention, with respect. It now belongs to the notebook, and maybe, one day, someone like you will pass by and feel your presence in that stone, just as you felt hers. And then, without realizing, you become part of the garden, not just as a visitor, but as a memory, as a witness that it is possible to set down what weighs and turn it into a page of stone. As you descend the rise, you feel something different in the air, a lightness, yes, but also a silent solemnity, as if you were about to cross an invisible threshold. The path leads you to a clearing that feels newly discovered, surrounded by trees leaning inward, as if guarding something, and in the center, a field of unknown plants, tall, slender, with dark flowers swaying even without wind. You walk among them with care. They're not fragile, but they are delicate, and there's something about them that seems aware of your presence. You feel a chill, not from cold, but from sudden awareness. Here, everything is watching, not with eyes, but with existence. Persephone cultivated these plants in silence, not for beauty, not for nourishment, but for memory. They are plants that hold moments that never came to be, choices never made, words left hanging in the air. Each flower, an invisible story. You stop in front of one of them. The flower leans gently toward you, and you understand, without explanation, this one is yours. You pick it, and in doing so, you feel no loss. You feel integration, as if what was never lived could now finally be accepted, not as failure, but as part of the landscape. You look around, other flowers sway, each containing what time never embraced, and you understand, with an unexpected serenity, life isn't made only of what we live, it's also made of what we didn't. Persephone knew that. She knew the deepest harvest isn't made with hands, but with a heart willing to hold the invisible. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you feel all your versions gather. The one who spoke, the one who stayed silent, the one who tried, the one who gave up, the one who couldn't. All together, not as conflict, but as a chorus. And that chorus sings in silence. You open your eyes. The flower you picked begins to dissolve in your hands, but it doesn't vanish. It turns into shimmering dust. It hovers in the air and fades slowly. There is no mourning, only gratitude. And you move on, with less weight, with more space, because now you know, even what you didn't live is part of who you are. The path ahead now appears more linear, almost formal, as if it had once been planned. But over time, even that intention faded. Branches cover parts of the path, roots assert themselves, and order became a memory. You walk on in silence, and the garden begins to change again. The colors grow paler, as if everything here were being deliberately faded, not from neglect, but from an economy of excess, until you arrive at a curious structure, a semicircular corridor, surrounded by columns and frames with no paintings, and within it, a room. No roof, no full walls, but clearly a space set apart from the rest. You step in and notice shards of mirrors on the ground. Not one or two, dozens, maybe hundreds, all broken, but none shattered by violence. They fractured on their own, from time, from exhaustion, from too much use. You crouch, look into one of them. Your reflection is distorted and still recognizable. Not frightening, just more honest. This is the place where Persephone came to see herself without framing, without angles, without metaphor, just as she was. You walk among the mirrors with care. Each shard reflects not a face, but a state. In one, you see your eyes, younger. In another, the same face, with a smile you don't remember ever giving. And then you understand. These mirrors hold not what was, but what was believed to be, the images you created of yourself and left behind, not from shame, but because you had to move on. Persephone did that many times. She didn't choose just one identity, nor one face. She was many, all incomplete, all valid. You kneel before a larger mirror, still intact, and in it, you see something different. Not your face, but a reflection of a self that never came to be, something that remained in the almost, but still dwells in some quiet part of your chest. You don't try to touch it or understand it, you just recognize it. And the mirror cracks, slowly, without sound, without drama, it just cracks. And you feel relief. Sometimes, letting go of an image is more important than creating one. You rise. As you exit the room, you don't feel like you've lost anything, but that you've recovered a piece of yourself that was already there, just waiting to be seen. And the shards, they stay, not from neglect, but because some fragments deserve to continue existing, not as wounds, but as reminders of how many times you've already reinvented yourself. The path now leads you down a gentle slope where stones covered in lichen form natural steps. The sound of water reaches your ears before your eyes, a steady murmur, deep and calm, like a heart that never stopped beating. You descend slowly. The air becomes more humid, cooler, and the scent of damp earth wraps around you like a forgotten blanket pulled from the back of a drawer, still warm from another time. At the bottom of the slope, a small lake, clear waters, almost still, fed by a spring trickling between stones smoothed by time. This isn't an ordinary lake. It's not made of water alone. It's made of liquid memory, of what Persephone didn't want to forget, but could no longer carry. You approach the edge and see the bottom lined with submerged leaves, leaves that do not decay, that remain there, as if holding forgotten names. There's a small stone staircase leading into the water. You remove your shoes, or maybe you were never wearing them. Time here blurs the details, and you step in. The first contact is a gentle shock. The water is cold, but not unwelcoming. It embraces firmly, like someone who recognizes you from the inside out. You submerge up to your shoulders, and something happens. There's no magical transformation, no catharsis, just a silence deeper than any you've ever known. As if there, at the core of your being, old things began to loosen, not painfully, but gently. Memories you didn't remember remembering, images from childhood, feelings that seemed long settled but were still curled up somewhere. The water doesn't force them out, it simply dissolves them, slowly, as if it understood that healing has no deadline. Persephone came here after her visits to the world of the dead, when she needed to wash away the echo of laments and return to feeling her own skin. You dive, and for a moment, everything ceases. Sound, form, story. It feels like returning to the before being, before expecting, before hurting. When you emerge, the garden seems brighter. Or maybe it's you who has become more translucent. The water runs down your body like gentle fingers, and it carries away not what belongs to you, but what no longer needs to stay. You step out, back onto the stone. The light touches your skin with a shy tenderness, and the lake stays behind, not as something abandoned, but as something that now also lives within you. The path is now almost invisible. The garden folds in on itself, as if dozing, and each step feels more intimate, closer to a center, not geographical, but symbolic. You sense you are approaching something important, but the feeling brings no anxiety. It brings reverence. The way opens softly, revealing a single tree at the center of a circular field. It is unlike any other, immense, twisted, ancient. Its branches rise and fall as if torn between sky and earth. The tree of never. Persephone named it so, not out of irony, but out of reverence for what never came to be. This tree grew from things that never were, from the almosts, from the what-ifs, from words stuck in the throat, from meetings that never happened, from loves never lived, and still it bloomed. You approach. Its bark is rough, marked with deep grooves like wrinkles, but there is beauty in that, the beauty of what endured, even without applause. You touch the trunk and feel a faint vibration, like the sound of a single long note, held in the air, a note that doesn't need to end. Among the branches hang small, color-shifting fruits. They look red, but also violet, or perhaps they're just reflecting your own state. You pick one. It weighs little, but it carries something. A possible past. You don't eat it, that's not its purpose. It's meant to be felt, and by holding it, you understand. Not everything needs to happen to be real. There are versions of us that will never see the light, but still shape us. There are futures that will never come, but still transform us. Persephone knew that, and perhaps that's why this was her favorite tree, not the one that gave what is, but the one that remembered what could have been. You sit beneath its shade and let the branches lean above you. They don't touch, but they hold. You close your eyes and you think of all the things that never were, not with sorrow, but with acceptance, because in Persephone's forgotten garden, even never has a place to bloom. And somehow, in an inexplicable way, that comforts you. You remain under the shade of the tree of never longer than expected. But time here, you already know. It doesn't rush. It breathes. When you rise, you feel a different kind of warmth in the air. Not physical. A presence. As if someone had just passed by, or is nearby, waiting without hurry. You follow a barely visible path, lined with small stone lanterns covered in moss. None of them are lit, and yet the path seems illuminated. In the distance, a simple portico, covered with pale flowers that grow only here. You walk through it, and on the other side, a full emptiness, a circular space, clear, no trees, no noise, only wind. In the center, a figure, not sharply visible, but felt. Persephone, not as goddess, not as queen, but as everything she was and everything she never could be. You don't move closer. There's no need, because now, communication doesn't happen through words, but through what remains unspoken. She slowly turns, but doesn't look at you directly. She looks through, as if seeing all your layers without needing to interpret any of them. And still, you feel completely seen. She extends her hand. In her palm, there is no object. There is intention. You understand that you don't need to take it. The hand is just the gesture. The real exchange happens even without touch. In that moment, you feel all of it at once. Her time, your time, what you both carry in common. The doubts, the departures, the obligations that shape you without warning, and a deep calm, like someone who has finally stopped resisting their own essence. The figure smiles, soft, sad, wise, and begins to walk away, not out of rejection, but because her role is complete. You don't try to follow. Her path is different, and that is beautiful and fair. You stay there a little longer, eyes closed, soul open, and something begins to grow inside you. Not a purpose, not a conclusion, but a serene question. And now, not as pressure, but as a whisper. The garden now recognizes you as part of itself, and you do too. The sky no longer holds a defined color. Somewhere between deep blue and the gray of silence, the firmament seems suspended in pause, as if time itself had sat down to rest with you for a while. You walk the final path. It leads nowhere, and that is its beauty. Around you, the garden begins to draw inward. The flowers gently close their petals, the leaves lower slightly, as if bowing in gratitude. Nothing dramatic, everything respectfully calm. You realize the garden doesn't end. It simply falls asleep, as do you. There are no goodbyes, because what matters doesn't say goodbye. It stays somewhere in the body or the memory. In the distance, the sound of the lake's waters, softer now, as if already singing to someone who sleeps. You remember the path you came through, but feel no desire to walk it back, because this is not a place of return. It's a place that stays within you even when you leave. You find one last stone bench. This time, you sit without thinking, as someone who knows they've arrived where they needed to be. The wind passes one last time, brushes your face with the gentleness of a farewell that doesn't need to hurt, and then you close your eyes, and everything you lived here settles inside you like a secret garden, invisible but fertile. You take a deep breath, the body relaxes, the mind surrenders, and as sleep arrives, you hear the garden whisper in a tone almost inaudible, "Not everything that's forgotten dies. Some things only sleep, waiting for a heart quiet enough to hear them." And now, the garden sleeps, and so do you. Good night.